started in the last session storage. So I think.
Tom, it's all for you.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. So yeah, I think the last session we started storage. So yeah, it is storage. We looked at what is. I mean, what are the options in storage, especially in Azure, and how is it a bit different compared to AWS? In the storage space, there are you need to have an account, storage account, which is like a super parent, kind of a parent, which will hold most of the common properties that are required, irrespective of what will be the underlying storage that you want to use. But there will be some things common across storage. All the properties which are common across storage are all taken to the parent. So when you create a storage account itself, especially the parent, so you will define all your default settings, which more or less will be applicable to all. But of course, anytime you can come back and change anything specific that you want. You can come back and anytime change it. But when you create a default storage account, it will ask you a lot of questions in terms of, I mean, a lot of configuration options in terms of what should be your encryption requirement, what is your HTTP, whether you want to enable HTTP or HTTPS. So all those common questions which are irrespective of common for what will be the storage, underlying storages. So all these options will be asked to you. But at the end, once you define all those things, and then based on your requirement, you can go to very specific like blob or table or file or queue or disk. So these are the options that you have in Azure as part of storage. So as I think in the last session we saw the blob. Primarily it is an object storage for data objects, which is similar to AWS S3. And in addition, if you're looking for a NoSQL kind of a setup, it's also like storage. So there you can go for table. Even though the table storage is meant for a NoSQL key value pair kind of a requirement, like a JSON file you want to store. So you can use table, which is a NoSQL store. And let's say you want to have files, typical files. So the file storage is an option for you. Let's say this is something, queue is something which is odd man out in this, but yeah, it is classified as also storage, where it primarily works on a messaging concept. So every message is that comes will have some message, and it will be continuous stream of data that you get, and you continuous messages. On the queuing side, there'll be source on the other side and the destination on the other side. So from source, so the source could be some application, destination could be some other application, but they both source and destination applications, they want to talk to each other asynchronously. Then yeah, they can use queue, which is one of the storage option as well. And then disk, as you know, like the hard disk, that is also part of the storage. Generally, just like any other storage options, we saw that it is durable, secure, scalable, managed completely by cloud and accessible through various sources, starting from CLI to you can access the storages using not just Portal. Portal is one option, but apart from Portal, you can also use them through CLI. You can use them through APIs. So all the standard options are all provided for you. So if you remember the last session, we looked at what is blob storage at a high level. So just a summary, you have three options: blob, page blob, and append blob. Blob is for storing blobs in text, which is up to 4.75 TB. And also now even this in preview, but it is now increased from 4.75 to 170, so 190.7 TIB. And there's also about the block, which is most popular storage mechanism. Of course, the next one is a page blob, where especially you want to store a VHD images or a VM or a virtual machine disks or backups. You can use this page blobs. The difference is that this is more random access file concept. So which means it's primarily storage. I mean, if you look at VM disk or images, they are also a similar category. Right? It will randomly can access files from anywhere. So it is so this kind of blob is primarily meant for such kind of random access files. It is optimized primarily for that. So here you can get up to 8 TB, and append blob, which is primarily for logging purposes, where it's primarily meant for optimized for append only operations, and primarily standard use case, popular use case is logs. As generally logs will be appended at the end mostly, so it will be more suitable for that use case. So we have classifications in this. This is common storage. This is stores for storage for VHDR images, and append only operations are primarily meant for logs. So use case specific, we have categorizations here, and we also saw the more scenarios what is popular. So yeah, the popular use cases for a blob storage are primarily serving the images and documents and streaming videos, writing to logs, storing the data for backup and restore, disaster recovery purposes, and also storing data for analysis when on-premise or Azure hosted. And we just now saw the demo of enterprise data lake to perform big data analytics. So this is where yeah, all this blob is kind of a commonly used places. And yeah, one specific mention, I think we also touched base this today's in the other demo, which is like blob is also primarily a data lake storage, Gen 2. I mean, I just want to touch upon what is Gen 1 versus Gen 2. So Gen 1, which is I mean, the difference in Gen 2 is that Gen 2 is more Hadoop file system way of storage is what is prioritized in Gen 2. So, I mean, the older version, Gen 1, was not having the Hadoop support. That is the Hadoop file system support. But Gen 2 is more Hadoop file system support is introduced in Gen 2. So that way, blob storage itself can be used as one of your data lake requirements. I think the idea was to use blob storage as the data lake storage solution, and that's when Azure was not having this when they initially developed in Gen 1 blob storage. It was not having this Hadoop support, and it's all the hierarchical. I mean, how the file system, Hadoop file system is something very unique where the files will be stored. You can store hierarchically, like how you store a file in your Windows directory, right? Let's say C drive, and C drive under that a folder one, under that subfolder one, and inside subfolder you store files. Right? There's a hierarchy that is built. So such hierarchy is most common use case for Hadoop file system, but initial Gen 1 was not supported to do that. So they did a ground up they reworked on this and they introduced Gen 2, and now the advantage.
So it's compatible with the Databricks, right?
Exactly. So it supports Hadoop file system. So it can be.
That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. So it supports. It's primarily meant for big data ecosystem. So the earlier storage system was not directly supported. So they had to do a migration to Hadoop file system, and then they had to import the data. But I think now they can directly use a blob storage for the big data ecosystem. So that's just one of a storage data like storage element where they can put files there and read files from there. Yeah. And so as Rudy said, Databricks has an integration to this blob storage. So and also Data Factory. So both of them can read data from this Gen 2. I mean, also if I just remember that slide which Venkat and Mani were presenting. So in that the middle box was having Gen 2 blob storage as one of the storage layer. So that's where this also fits in the big data ecosystem.
Yeah, and recently I heard Sham, with Databricks, they have the capability to do the delta update on the raw format on any type of unstructured file, which is kind of phenomenal.
Yeah, that's true.
So I
Yeah, I think this Gen 2 is something which
That's
came.
that's a fantastic.
Yeah, correct. Then go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's fantastic. I think webinar by Databricks, and then in that actually, they kind of shared actually how the raw format can be manipulated. Using uh, data.
Gen 2 was released very recently.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I'm done.
Yes, yes, yeah. Gen 2 is there's a lag. I don't know. I'm hearing it's probably on my end. I guess I don't know. But yeah, Gen 2 is as someone was mentioning, Gen 2 is very recently introduced. So not necessarily recently, it's probably less than 1.5 year from now. Um, so and yeah, I think the idea was primarily keeping big data in mind. This was re-engineered. So yeah, but for end user, there is no big difference. I mean, the whoever earlier were using Gen 1, it is it's an easy migration path for them. But any new customers, they are now asking to use Gen 2 because it's more it has a lot of advantages compared to Gen 1. Yeah. So again, I think going further, I think we just discussed on the various resources, blob storage resources. Generally, just like how your folder structure will be there in your Windows file system, but there will be you log in with in your laptop, you log in with your user ID, and of course you'll have a folder and files inside it. It's a similar structure. Where here in blob storage you need to have an account, which is where we saw that storage account is required. Under that, you need to create a container, because container is nothing but a folder. Inside container, you store your files. And this account will be something unique. I mean, it is a common. It is indirectly using blob.core.windows.net as a DNS name. So this my storage account here, which is your namespace. This namespace should be unique. So if something is already taken, you can't use the same one. And then container, which is a folder, which generally just like you can organize the files. For example, pictures, all pictures you can go here, and movies, all movies can go here. So it's more of organizing stuff, just like how we create folders. And blobs, yeah, here you have you can upload all this block related or append related or page block. All three are supported in the same block. You don't, I mean, there's no further script here. When this, you can upload all three or in all three types, or you can use just blob or something. But yeah, it supports all three blobs that we saw here. So there's no differentiation inside a blob than a blob. And also we just looked at what are the migration tools where we have to migrate data to blob storage. We saw AZ copy, command and utility, and then storage, data movement library, which is a dotted library, which again AZ copy interval uses this library. I mean, from the code you can also summarize that you can using dotted code also you can upload files programmatically to storage. So and data factory, which is what we discussed in the morning, with the previous session also. So it can copy data to and fro from blob storage, and it primarily needs an account key, shared access signature, principal, manage identities. With this, you can copy the data. So that's what the typical ETL operations can be done using data factory. The blob views, this is more like a file system driver for blob storage. So you can mount a blob views file system driver, just like C drive or D drive. So it's on a Linux file system primarily, but not on Windows. So but it's primarily for Linux file system. You can mount a drive on a Linux file system, and you can use that. And yeah, it's all for copy operations. I mean, if you want to bring data to cloud, either it could be a first-time migration or it could be a continuous process from your on-premise systems you want to push data to cloud. These are the various options that you have. Data box, which is like it's a huge file transfers where you think kind of petabytes of data that you're thinking about, then and it's primarily meant for a one-time activity migration where at a different shift you want to do a complete migration from close your on-premise and completely want to move to cloud. So then but you're a huge data company, then yeah, you have lots and lots of data. So then this is more an option for you. Um, you will use data box disk. Here there are some variations. Data box disk, which is it's all size, the size based on size and capacity. There are some variations here. For simple, you can use data box disk, again data box and data box heavy devices. So it's then Azure import export service. This is also another popular tool, and yeah, it is primarily meant to copy the data from our accounts using hard disk drives. That's what this. So yeah, I think it's a these are all like moving heavy stuff, but of course the other popular integration, like if it's a one-time file that is coming from an application here, you want to put it there. You have the typical approaches like SDK, you can integrate your code using Azure SDK, and Azure SDK provides APIs as well, or other methods using which you can do the transfer. Of course, API is also another option. Like you can use storage APIs given by Microsoft, so you can use that. You can call an API to upload a file, download a file. You can do all these operations using API. Now I'm talking about one-time file that is coming from application A, and then you want to push the data to file. I'm talking about this. These are all not big files. It is like not a one-time copy files. It's like incremental small files that you get on day-to-day basis. So where you want to integrate programmatically with application A and then read the data from application A and push it to cloud. So far, that kind of scenarios, you always have the CLI route, the REST API route, and SDK route. These three are always there for you. I mean, those are all for smaller migrations, but these are all one-time migration tools that you can use for heavy data loads. Right, and then we discussed about access tier, which is more exam point of view is also very important. So the three types of access types that are available: hot, cool, and archive. Hot is primarily for frequently accessed files. Cool is infrequently accessed, and archive is rarely accessed files. I think and other important requirement is that these files should be for cool. There will be 30 days of storage minimum is required, otherwise they will charge. For this archive, it is 180 days of minimum storage required. And of course, there will be archive will have a latency requirement when you have to fetch this file. We discussed in the last session. So this is the comparison and the availability that is provided. 30 days minimum storage is 30 days and 180 days here. Here for premium, this is like you get in hot tier, hot, cool, and archive is all for standard category, and there's a premium category which is different. So the premium will be having better options, and also it comes with a cost. So you get high storage cost involved and low access and transaction cost involved, whereas in archive here, low storage costs and higher access and transaction costs are involved. And one thing we need to keep in mind is for archive, we need to, if you want to get the data, you don't immediate, you need to wait at least a couple of hours to get the data. So because it is like more archive, right? So it has to be like retrieving the data from a tape in olden days, right? So it will take some time. So it's similar to that. It's coming to the, I think this is what we saw in the last session. I think this is something new. File storage. File storage is also another popular option, especially very commonly used in real life, in the real-time projects. So primarily this file storage is primarily to use your files as your common requirement where you want to store it somewhere, and so this will be a better option for you. It is all managed by cloud, by Azure. So managed file system for cloud and also for on-premise. when on-premise is also important, because this file storage options, all the storage options, not just file, but all the storage options, they support both cloud and on-premise support will be there for all the storage options that we see in this storage category. So why on-premise? Because most of the files are generated in on-premise world. So now all these hybrid options are provided by all the cloud vendors now, because we already realized that most of the applications are on-premise now, and they need an on-premise integration support is required. So it's not just cloud only; it can also support on-premise deployments. And yeah, one, when someone talks about file, first the protocol that we should keep in mind is the most popular protocol is SMB, the server message block, and NFS is also another popular protocol. But these two are file protocols most popular, but SMB is the most popular. And SMB is, I think, the latest protocol version is 3, I guess, or 3R, maybe 3.x, I don't know, I don't remember that, but 3 is the most popular one, which is supported by most of the cloud vendors. And and Azure supports the latest protocol. And Azure files, generally they are mounted. I mean, you can imagine this file storage is something like always it comes with a mount option. So it is like you can imagine this file storage as your external hard disk. So once you associate an external hard disk to a laptop, right, you get another drive like C drive. You have another drive like E drive or F drive. So it's something like that. So you can associate a file drive externally with a mount, and so that way you can decide what should be the capacity of this external hard disk. It could be 100 GB or 200 GB or terabytes. So you can go to higher level terabytes as well. So, but yeah, you need to define what should be your capacity required for the storage, this file storage. And I mean here, this we need to keep this in mind. This protocols also we should keep in mind when you think about file storage. One important difference we need to know is that Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, all these three operating systems are supported for SMB. But for NFS protocol, which is the other protocol, Windows is not supported yet. So primarily the NFS is developed for Linux, and it is most popular file system for Linux. And of course, macOS is also kind of a variant of Linux, and it's more Linux friendly. So macOS also uses NFS as the popular protocol. Windows is not supported, but NFS is. I mean, people are moving towards SMB nowadays. Nowadays, I think probably they may or may not introduce support for Windows here. But yeah, but still there are a lot of people who use Linux. I mean, a lot of people are using Linux, and NFS is the most common file system in the Linux world. So that is something here. And yeah, and this is very this caching option. So this is one of the recent introduction, which is called file sync. Azure file sync is primarily for a on-premise setup. This is all provided. For file sync is you file sync is another product within Azure, but it is more goes along with the file storage. The file sync is primarily it is a utility where you can install it on a Windows server. So let's say Windows server is acting as your file storage server, and so you can install a file sync. And the advantage in file sync is that it keeps on caching your files that are being uploaded, and that way when someone wants to retrieve a file, either in on-premise world or over the internet or the cloud. So file sync will, since it is having this caching facility, it can download your files faster. So that's where another magic where I mean the very common problem is that when there's latency, right? When you store, upload or download a file which is pretty huge, then it all comes with, it will take some time to either write or read or download. So it takes time because it's all happening over the internet. So it's all some techniques where to process this faster, right? But it's a simple concept, but it is more popular now. This caching concept, the golden day technique. So they applied this caching concept using this tool called Azure File Sync, where with which you can read or write. When most frequently used files will be you can access them more faster compared to not using this. So just the caching concept. And well, very recent introduction is a serverless feature. So basically, this file storage is now. I mean, now everything is going towards a serverless world, right? So the pay as you go. So you will not even. I mean, with the file storage is if you think about file storage, you're paying for the file storage, but also this has to be associated to some compute also. Even though it is storage layer, but storage layer is not independent. Storage always linked with the compute layer also, because you need to have a VM, a Windows box or Linux box. So when you talk about Windows or Linux, it is a compute layer again. So storage and compute will go together. But let's say you want to access those files, but you don't want to pay for a compute, but you just want to pay only for storage. So it is like serverless is a beautiful feature where you need to pay for the Windows or Linux operating system. It is on the fly. It will create a compute for you, and also storage, and then you can link. You can copy a file there, and then it will, once this copy is complete, it will dismantle the compute. So that way, you're not paying for compute when you're really not using it. So that's where the serverless feature is more popular. There is someone joined incredibly. Sahana team video. Okay. Yep. So built. So that's about the serverless feature, and also built for hybrid file sync. I think we discussed that primarily. It also helps you to transform your Windows servers into caches for your cloud shares. So it's not just copying the files and caching them. You can support them as your cloud shares. I mean, you can share this to someone else. Also, like all the features like sharing a file between on-premise and cloud. Like it comes with a hybrid feature where you can access the files both from on-premise and also cloud, and also you also get the caching layer inbuilt. So and Windows servers support. If you're already using Windows servers for your file storage, you can also get that Azure hybrid benefit advantage. So yeah, it is like advantage in multiple ways. Like if you are using Windows Azure file servers, you can bring them to cloud with so you need to pay for the Windows compute cost. You can reuse the existing Windows licenses into cloud, and also you can use the same feature with the caching inbuilt using the file sync layer. So you get the best of all the benefits. So I think this is what probably be seen in AWS, because the Windows servers are with the hybrid benefit you will not get in AWS. And then also this migrating your files. Migrate your Windows file server, you can primarily use it as is like a lift and shift your file, and it's more or less like zero downtime migrations. So I mean, this migration is a bigger aspect, and especially people who are migrating to cloud for the first time. There are a lot of options. Lift and shift is one strategy where you blindly don't look anything, blindly take it from your on-premise, lift it and shift it. So that is one of the most popular strategy for on-premise to cloud migration. And when it comes to such requirement, your file storage is your friend. So because you generally use you're probably if you're using any Windows file server, so you can directly, as it is, move from on-premise to cloud. So it's just lift and shift, and you don't even pay for any additional infrastructure to copy this data. So you get that advantage of zero downtime migration. So yeah, these are the promises where I mean, that's where Windows. If you are using Windows, then you get all these advantages. So that's where Microsoft Azure is betting on improving or pulling a lot of people to cloud, saying that we give that additional benefit which other cloud providers cannot do. Right? Uh, yeah. Any questions on this slide? Okay. So the next is the structure, how this will look. I think it's similar to what we saw the blob storage, file storage will have an account. Instead of containers, they call us share here. And the share, and after the directories and files.
Just a quick question. So I'm sorry to bother you.
Yeah.
Shyam, sorry.
Yeah.
Shyam, sorry to bother you. Just a quick question. Previous slide about the first point saying on-premise deployment. I thought Azure files can happen using this, or where is it being used? I'm not able to see that.
Okay. So you can create a file storage and using you can associate if you're already having an
The first
on-premise.
point says managed file shares for. You can understand that. Yes, it is somewhere. But on-premise, what is where is it?
Yeah, on-premise is like you can create a file storage in cloud, and you can integrate that into your on-premise Windows server. So, I mean, the only thing is that your compute is required, right? I mean, at the end, once you create a file share, you have to associate either you should mount that to your Windows or Linux or a Mac machines, right? So imagine that Windows, Mac or whatever the compute layer. Let's say it is in
Correct. Some
on-premise.
processing should be based on the data.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lag actually. I'm hearing your question after there's a lag. But yeah, well, what I'm telling is the compute.
Yes, there is a lag.
The compute that we're talking about, the compute is imagine that compute is in on-premise, and your file storage is in cloud. Okay, there then you need to associate your file storage, which is in cloud, to your on-premise Windows or a Linux operating system, right? So there your deployment is on-premise deployment. So this,
Okay. Yeah.
got it, right? I think this.
Okay.
That's where even this file sync is also supported there. I mean, your on-premise Windows servers, if they're trying to access your cloud file storage, it will take some time because on-premise to cloud, the latency will be there to fetch any file from cloud to on-premise or on-premise to cloud. So that's where this file sync was introduced. Again, this has a support for on-premise as well, where the most frequently used files will be cached on-premise server, but physical file will be there in the cloud. But it is cached on an on-premise server.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, all this storage, I mean, especially the file storage, this requires compute. I mean, this has to be mounted somewhere to use. So that's where, yeah. So this is a perfect fit for on-premise because generally use in typical organization, the file servers will be either Linux, mostly it will be Linux, but yeah, of course they also use Windows if the Windows organization. Yeah, generally you will the compute is will be bare minimum for a file server because they don't want a pretty big compute for a file server. So they keep the compute resources medium level compute. But because it's just file server, you need more of a storage layer rather than a compute layer. So yeah, so that's where so it's the perfect fit for on-premise where the compute is on a on-premise area.
Okay, Shyam. Thank you.
Okay, so this structure it is similar to blob, except this one layer is extra here, which is a share. Okay, so there'll be a lot of shares that you need to create first, and this share is dependent on the protocol, whether it be NFS or SMB. So that is what the one difference. But yeah, you can create the a number of shares. There's no restriction there. But yeah, it can. But only catch is that it max it can have a 5 TB capacity for a share. But you can create a number of shares, but there's no restriction on the numbers. But it's just that one file share is like 5 TB capacity. So you need to create multiple file shares if you have more requirements of storage. But other than that, there'll be account and we create a file share, and in that, like how you use in general laptops, you create a directory and then you create a file. So those are all common. Yeah, and then directories here, if you look at again, yeah, directories are optional. I mean, you can directly put a file also in a share. So this directory is just for your convenience, just to organize. So same case even for in storage also. I mean the blob storage also. This directories, I mean their containers are important, but inside containers you can create a directory or I mean necessarily what you call as bucket, right? So here it is directories are optional here. You can directly copy a file also to a file share. Okay, and then this file, the max is 1 TB is a max size for a file. So that is again, but these numbers are all like every day changing. I mean, they're increasing their size. At this as of today, these are the numbers. But yeah, this because of this competition now, these numbers every day they're giving a better. They're giving a higher capacity. They're increasing the capacity because of this competition. So yeah, this as of today, this is the situation. Yes. And yeah, this further this identity. This is how your I mean this file storage is there, but it also requires a protection in terms of who can access what file or so. So probably we talk about authentication authorization of a file. Who can access what when? So before that, going to the identity part. If you look at the deployment options, coming back to the same question that you asked, there are two options here in the deployment side. So you need a mount, so direct mount of an Azure file share. So it is mount is you can imagine. I mean, people from Linux they know what mount is, but there is in mount is like another drive, like C drive, D drive. So you can associate a drive, a storage drive. It's like, for example, external hard disk is a mount, for example, in a Windows operating system. So you can imagine similarly an external hard disk which you're associating, so it will come as a D drive or a E drive. So that is what is. So file share is also similar concept. You can imagine an external storage you're getting in cloud, like your external hard disk, and you can associate that to either to your laptop or a Windows operating system or Linux operating system. So that is one way, the mounting of a file share onto a compute. That is option one. Option two is again this is optional, but this is most used. Mounting of a file share is the most common deployment pattern. But also you can use as because of the file sync, right? You can cache the Azure file share on premise with Azure file sync. Let's say if you are not a heavy user of, I mean, you don't get files very often, but yeah, you get files, but not on a daily basis, but once in a while kind of a scenario. But you will access it also very rarely. Then in that case, you can use this file sync option. So this is a new entry. So it was like for this, you don't need to have a mount on your machine. The file will be physically in cloud, but using file sync, they will be cached, and there will be kind of a you get a simulation as if the file is co-located in your on-premise server, but actually this is not the case. But the retrieval times or latency is very less because the file is cached. So this is more of a caching concept for a primarily meant for on-premise setup. So yeah, these are two options. And coming to the identity part, yeah, so there are files, but who can access these files, right? So when it comes to that, so generally these file servers are meant to store files. Sometimes it could be the file server could be common across the entire organization, right? I mean, as an enterprise company, I will buy at once 200 TB of file share and keep it, and I will say, yeah, I mean, department one, department two, department three, all three departments use this. This is a common file server, like SharePoint, for example. So anyone can upload files from different departments to SharePoint. So similar to that. So the file server, which is generally common for all the, I mean, they buy storage as a higher storage capacity, and they will ask all the departments to use this. But when it comes to that, then this identity picture will come there. Who can access what folder? So because it is a shared, so that's where this identity plays a major role in that case. Yeah, Azure provides three identity options for you in that case. One is, when you talk about identity, the answer in the Azure world is Active Directory. So Active Directory is a Windows popular Windows product which gives you that equivalent to IAM in AWS. So yeah, so obviously you use Active Directory, but there is a variation in Active Directory where this Active Directory could be probably you might have an Active Directory on-premise, which is most common scenario where if you're enterprise, you might already have an on-premise Active Directory. So you could use that for your file share also, Azure file share also. But and also you can use, let's say you don't have on-premise, let's say you have it on cloud. You can use it's called Azure Active Directory. There's one difference that you need to notice: Azure here and there is no Azure here. So this is on-premise Active Directory and this is Azure Active Directory. So same Active Directory you have both. I mean, you already bought before the cloud world came. So I think 10 years or 15 years back, it was Azure Active Directory is there. So most of them enterprises are already using an on-premise Active Directory. So let's say if you're a new organization, then you can, instead of buying it on-premise, you can use a cloud Active Directory also. And in most of the organizations these days, I'm talking about the startups or the ones which are popping up newly. They are now that no one is looking. I mean, they're not a cloud company, but they're still using Active Directory as a cloud product. Because of the scalability and maintenance, free, all these advantages that. So they're all the startup companies. They're all using the Active Directory is a common requirement. However big or small your enterprise is, this is a day one need for authentication authorization of your enterprise accounts. So yeah, now everyone is moving towards, the new companies are moving towards Azure Active Directory. But if you're an enterprise who's when you already have an Active Directory on your on-premise, then you can use that. So both are supported. But yeah, coming back to file storage, so you can when you create a Azure Storage, so you'll have a storage account. Right? So the Azure Storage accounts basically can be domain joined to a customer-owned Active Directory domain services. So what is when we domain joined? Domain joined is in the terminology of Active Directory is a domain you can think as a compute, which would be your Windows file server or Linux file server. So a compute layer, a Windows or Linux machine. So in Active Directory terminology, any device, they call it device because even a mobile could be a compute. So a mobile device also could be compute. So and Windows 10 it's already, they're calling it device already because it supports all the mobile features also inbuilt, like Bluetooth and all those features are all inbuilt inside Windows 10. So they renamed the word computer to a device. So yeah, so basically all devices, which includes your Linux operating systems, Windows operating systems, and mobile operating systems, all can be joined to an Active Directory. Um, uh, so that way, let's say your file storage is associated to a Windows server, Windows file server. That Windows machine can be domain joined into an Active Directory. So that way you can control that, and you can give permissions, and there's something called RBAC, role-based access control. So you can give a role-based access control. You can enable that in Active Directory, and you can tell. But typically, if you remember the groups, creating a group and associating users to the group, whatever if you remember the IAM concepts, the creating a group and associating users to a group, and then giving permissions to a group so that it is applied to all the people under the group. All the features are all available in Active Directory on the Windows server that is domain joined, or Linux server that is domain joined. So yeah, so using that you can control who can do what. So I mean, let's say with this, the advantage is that, for example, Sham can only upload a file, but not delete a file, for example. So if you have a requirement like that, then you can use that feature in this guarantee. And also, let's say, administrator, you can create a group called administrator, and add people there. The very important key people can be added as administrator. They can do whatever they want, like uploading, deleting, or adding more space. So all those complete administrator role they can play. And of course, there are viewers who can just view the files, or the readers who can, viewers or readers, they can just view or read the file. But the contributor roles, where you can, like when a contributor role is associated in Active Directory, you can primarily do all the operations except adding people to the new people to the, like except user management. You can do rest of the functionalities, like you can upload, delete, add anything. So you can do all this. So basically all this permissions based on role-based functionality, you can achieve that uh, using this Active Directory. So yeah, I think it's more Active Directory feature, but yeah, the point is we could link your domain into Active Directory so that you can get all the views of Active Directory onto a file storage. So yeah, that gives that authentication authorization feature. So yeah, these are the Active Directory features. The third one is, if you don't have Active Directory, then you can also use your storage account key also as one of the identity option. So you can Azure file shares may also be primarily mounted using Azure Storage key account itself, but it's not a good practice to use this. Always good practice. A recommended option is to use Active Directory based, so that you get the other benefits of adding people, removing people, and all those things you get. But this is also an option. But if you don't have Active Directory, I mean, you can directly using your storage account key itself, where your username is your storage account key, and the password is your storage account key that when you create a storage account. Yeah. So these are the options that you have in identity space. Are there any questions here? Okay. So we got, so, and encryption. I mean, these are all common features, not just for files, but more or less all the storage options would need all these things. Like it's nothing specific to file storage as such. But yeah, just keep that. I mean, these are all the features in file storage, but you can associate more or less all these features for all any storage medium. For example, even this applies even for a blob as well. And encryption. Also, this encryption is a very common feature which is required, and we need to know what is the files, what we upload there. I mean, how are they encrypted? So there are, when you talk about encryption, there are two options, so like encryption in transit and encryption in rest. So transit is basically when the file is really on the move. It is not physically there, but it is just on the move from one network to other. So it is in transit. So it is in move. So so you can do encryption in transit while it is in move. or when you can also do encryption at rest. So these are the two popular encryption options. When someone in the cloud world, someone asks you about encryption, these are two things that we should keep in mind. Encryption could be done at both levels. And yeah, when you talk about transit, how Azure files are encrypted is that primarily one restriction here is that the client who is trying to access these files, they should be SMB 3.0 compliant, because SMB 3.0 is SMB is a protocol, as you know. So this SMB protocol mandates require for the client. So, and it imposes some restrictions on how this file should be encrypted and how this client should access this files. So, yeah. So basically, if you talk about any client, the client should be the client. When I say client, could be your data studio, which I will show you, or it could be the client could be your program, your Java program or .NET program SDKs of Azure. So yeah, anything could be client. So the client SME 3.0 comes to access these files and or even to upload something to cloud. So basically, it should encrypt at source and send it. So that over the wire, it is when the file is really being transferred, it is encrypted. And also on the cloud side, also you should enable this encryption and transit feature. So again, this is an option which is not defaultly available. You can disable it also if you want, but it's always good practice to enable it. So that the files which are being transferred to the file server, so you will accept a file which is encrypted at source. If the file is not encrypted, you will not even accept it. So, so that is this feature, encryption and transit. Basically, you are enabling the source side, which is the client, and also you are putting the same option on the server side, which is the Azure side. So both sides you should enable the encryption, so that the source, when it is sending a file to the destination, which is file server, it will be both sides. It is enabled to accept that encrypted file. So, and the second option is an encryption at rest. So, when the file is physically copied to a server, like it is at rest, like it got copied. It is physically sitting in the file server. So even there, encryption is required, because when someone tries to access that file, unless they have a key, they can't decrypt it. So by default, when it comes to rest, encryption rest, by default all files are encrypted using Azure Storage service encryption, and it uses SPOOF 6-bit AES encryption algorithm, and using that, it will all the files are encrypted by at rest. And these are the features which are the features that you get by default in cloud. I mean, let's say if you're building your own file storage, right? So you need to should think about all these things. But these are features that you get, as an added advantage when you go to cloud. Yeah, that's about the encryption side. And then data protection. So what features are there in cloud, especially in the file storage for data protection? So by default, this Azure file system or any storage for that matter within Azure, they have a soft delete option. So soft delete is like the file, when you delete by mistake, for example, the file physically will not be deleted, but it will be there still. It's just like a recycle bin. Like once you delete, it will be stored in your recycle bin in Windows operating system. It's similar to that. So it is marked as deleted, but it's not physically deleted. So by enabling this feature of soft delete, you can store the file physically on the server. So that way, when it comes to data protection, because no one can accidentally delete it, even if someone, even for accidentally or for or any malicious activity, like a virus or something, which can, if you get access to that to your network, it can do a clean sweep of all the data. So, but if you're enabling the soft delete option, yeah, the files are not physically deleted, even though it is marked for deleted, but marked for deletion, but it's not physically deleted. But here you can keep an option of how many days after that you want to physically delete. So if let's say you can say that I need 7 days, you can keep 7 days for soft delete. So it will maintain the file for 7 days, and after 7 days it will delete this file completely from the storage. So that's about soft delete feature. Again, very popular exam question also. And backup. Yeah, backup is also another data protection where I mean really it suffice for any storage, not just file storage, but you need to back up your data. Otherwise, if something anything can crash anytime, but it's always good to keep a backup of your data. So there are a lot of backup options available in Azure. So you can use those backup, the daily backup or monthly once backup. You can schedule it also, so you can do all those backups. And which is a third option is something very newly introduced, which is called advanced threat protection for Azure files. This is, in fact, this came only in the last, I forgot what is it, Azure Summit. So the last, the insights, I guess, yeah. I think the last summit only this was introduced. Advanced threat protection for Azure files is it can also when a file is coming in, so the file can also can prone to a malicious virus or something. So just avoid that there is the scan of the file will be done before the file is physically copied. So that protection is also introduced in the file share now. So you can enable this. It comes with a cost. It's not free, but yeah, you can enable this feature. It's like another product kind of a thing, which is within primarily meant for Azure files. Probably they will introduce this probably for other storage options also, but this is introduced primarily for Azure files dedicated at this point. Again, it is in preview phase now. It's not live yet, but yeah, it is not GA yet. It is in preview. Right. So yeah, I think storage. Yeah, that's about encryption data protection. So this it's not just creating file share. You also need to keep all these things in mind when you think about data. Data can it's like data is your core. Everything you should think about encryption. You will think about data protection. These are all as an architect. You should think about all these things when you introduce something new to your organization. So then. I think it should. These guys are just working on this slide. The heading is storage types. So the storage types. This in Azure files there are four storage types available. So the storage types I'm talking about in files again further categorization, which is premium, transaction optimized, hot, cool. So these are the four storage tiers inside Azure files. Premium, if you look at it is backed by solid state drives (SSD), whereas other three options are hard disk (HDD). So, but premium is solid state drive. Because of solid state drive, in premium you get an advantage of high performance and low latency. So it will give a single millisecond I/O. I/O is very important when in a file storage, especially when you want to write files. I/O matters. So when you're writing data to a file or write some text to a file or a blog, so this I/O plays a major role. So yeah, especially when for this, if you have more I/O requirements, like for example. Database, for example, is a pretty high I/O stuff, right? So you write a lot of data to the database. So for that high I/O kind of requirements, you always Azure recommends SSD. solid state drives because you get that extra fast feature. Yeah, single millisecond I/O, and then of course you also get that the use cases. If you look at it is primarily this file storage is primarily for databases, website hosting, and development environments where this premium storage will help you. The next is transaction optimized. This is based by not solid state drive, it is disk. So hard disk, so it generally it is less performant than solid state drive. So you'll get a medium latency, and it's also called as transactions. It's also called a standard tier. Transaction optimized is called as a standard tier, where because it's premium, this is standard. But it is meant for medium latency kind of requirements. You don't need a pretty high performance. Then you can think about transaction optimized standard tier as a Azure file storage mechanism. And hot is again backed by HTTP. Again, it is lesser feature, but generally it is for all your general purpose requirements. This should be sufficient. Typically, once in a while, you get some files and you will upload it, download it. So, for general purpose requirements where you don't expect too much of high read and writes, then this would be more or less sufficient. And also, this has integration with Azure File Sync as well with hot storage. Because generally, if you're not looking for a premium category, then the hot would be sufficient unless you have a heavy transactions, you get a lot of writes, then you can think about transaction optimized. But once in a while you get files like that, then you can consider hot storage as your solution. Cool is another option, which is most cost efficient storage because it is cool. Generally, you can't expect too much of latency. There will be always some lag in the latency wise, but you're not worried about latency, then the other advantage is that this is very cheaper compared to other options. And primarily for archival solutions, this plays a major role. So yeah, that's about this storage ties.
So, Shyam, is a good time to break? Or?
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, I think we'll take a break. So I think in the next session we'll look at more on the demo of this file share, and then we'll directly look into other features like the table and queue disk. So these are other storages we have. Yeah. Okay. Any questions before we wind up?
So your tiers, right? That is for